we are Paloma and Michel. We did the piece, I Don't Speak Language. Our collective was founded in 2018, and we did this work in collaboration with Tim Schenk and Marco Salz, who, unfortunately, could not come. We focus our practice on experimenting with linguistic signs and electronic devices, inspired by techniques such as the cut-ups from William Burroughs and LiTE-HAUS poems. We use fragments of phrases and sound elements such as words, syllables, and concrete sounds with the aim of rethinking and deconstructing language and to become aware of its existence as a representation, to revise the symbols that we are constantly taking for granted, to acknowledge the existence of symbols through the process of breaking them. I Don't Speak Language works as a foundational piece for the collective. It is, in a way, our statement. With this phrase that is in itself an oxymoron, we seek to also place in doubt our own ability to communicate and to question the excess of words, or the lack of them. This machine belongs to a dystopic multiverse, a post-industrial machine made out of obsolete devices or future obsolete devices, combining digital and analog signals that are sent out to another space, time. This cathode rays will be floating in the cosmos for the eternity.
Thank you for
I can speak like So hi, I'm Shahed, and Katherina already been introduced to. We did the piece Rumination. It's in line with the concept of spatial installation, where we create a space where the visitor becomes the main element that changes the perspective in the room in terms of sound and light and how the room looks like. As Katherina mentioned earlier, rumination is a word play we did with the word ruminate, that's written with U, which is to sit and think deeply. It's also connected in some religious practices with the concept of pilgrimage and ruminating around like holy places in Buddhism, in Islam. And in our piece we create the kind of similar movement where people ruminate in one room and start performing their own rituals in a way that they become their own master. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about how it's connected to Future 3 in the future.
It was just going to be my question, so perfect.
Yeah, well, we thought because usually many times you are how do you say in English? Yeah, I mean, society kind of influences you, how you act, you think, you move, and so. But sometimes we are even not aware of it, and we wanted to create a situation where you become more aware of the room and what's actually happening in there, and your own body, your movement, and how it affects the environment, your actions. So yeah, it's like on an aesthetic level, but I mean, art is a possibility to change your perception, and through this, how you perceive yourself and the rest of society and the world, and then it affects your actions as well. Yeah, that means like you are somebody, you have an effect in your surroundings, and you change them, like also if you're just one person, but it makes some effect like in society, and so to on some level be more aware on the effect you have on the world. Like, I mean, here's it more on a physical aesthetic level, but you could extend the accept in every area of life. Like, yeah, that was kind of more.
I would also maybe want to add that in the piece you are also more aware of the presence of the others, because if you're alone in the room, then the light is changing in a different way. But if there are many people moving at the same time, then they have to be aware at some point. They get to notice that if this person moves in this direction and I move in this direction, then more sound will come or different light will turn on and off. And this is about also creating a collective awareness of our presence. This is how it's related to the concept of future 3, to have a space where we all could exist in being aware of each other.
Also somehow to regain the connection to the physical world and body. Like nowadays with the internet and all, we are more like in the mind or away somehow. So yeah, bringing us back to here, to the present in the place.
Mm-hmm. So could we say that this could be also, when you were talking about the awareness of the community, this could be also about communication as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because when, as I said, when there are more than one person in the room, then we have to communicate somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then the movement of these people in the room, it's their communication.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
The turn is much better. I can make it more clear, not also concerning other work, because I think it's here, it's more about it being speechless, other senses, and then I am the one who's speaking more in my pieces, because it's a kind of storytelling, and this is the idea for me to about future, and what I suggest is in my dream is being speechless. In the beginning it can be very hard, but actually, I have experienced that even speaking in the same language doesn't make you necessary that you understand those people. So, and I think our world is like more about this kind of communication, stuck in this kind of language or like kind of social media or whatever. But of course, with my idea, how I came to this piece, the first attempt was, when I was in Turkey in December, I saw lots of, I know that also in this area there were no peace ever, but seeing that much those weapon export and also seeing some weapon which made in Germany, really it affected me a lot, and also especially it's those tanks. We are speaking Leopard 2 tanks, they are great. I was watching on social media, they are so made it the greatest things and whatever. And it was really not only this video, the video I show a bit, but I was seeing every day when I was there. So this, I started with this idea, how do you live with it? And I think my dream is built on this reality. How can disturb our dream or our reality? Because I'm now in Turkey or in Kurdistan, very difficult. I am tourist, and it must be very hard. Can you imagine every day there are tanks passing through in the street, just for fun or whatever? What would you think about it? And this is especially. People living there, it must be very hard. So my pieces came with this idea, and I wanted to explain to a dream, and the dream why I made this installation, telling on my dream to a water. It's like, as I said, it's from my grandmother. I have learned, whenever you have like any dream, tell it to the water. It will relieve you. So this is the thing also, what water can help us.
And are you trying with your piece to show that something like wars that happened in the past and eventually will happen in the future, do you think this could be a way of awareness so people will change, or are you expecting any changes from the people who sees your piece?
I think I'm more into now, and it is happening now. Of course, the war was happening any moment in the human history. And we think right now that we are more developed as human beings, but still we produce weapons and we sell and especially the kind. I mean, I'm living here 15 years, and whenever I talk about it, it's like economy, and I really don't understand. You can earn your money and you are clever enough to earn money and build the future with something else instead of selling weapons. And I don't know why it's not a subject that much, but it destructs our future, of course. And so it destructs also the day you are living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so it will start, maybe if the past we cannot change, but we can change now to affect the future.
Yes.
Yeah, this piece is like the second version of this collaborative process we started. And apart from that, I'm a sound artist working with sound and usually making installations. And for me, always the space and architecture is very important as it also affects the acoustics. And usually I'm trying to find spaces that are not so white cube-like, that have some atmosphere and so, but of course also I'm doing something in white cubes. Yeah, because I had originally I come from painting, but I had contact with dance and music, and somehow I got more interested into body and space and time issues.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be similar. I also come from a painting background, and then I did further my studies in stage design and scenography. And because of this aspect in my studies, I became more aware of the materials. So I'm always looking for different materials to create different feelings and different atmospheres. And I started working with neon lights in 2016 in my graduation project that I did at my master program. And ever since I got somehow stuck on this element because it's light. Working with light is a different experiment. And I like the neon lights actually because it's somehow connected to my childhood, because I also come from a country where there was civil war when I was growing up, and we didn't have the luxury of having these fancy lamps, and so we always had neon lights everywhere because we wanted to also not to pay too much for electricity. So this is somehow connected to my childhood, and I kept it on with me. And yeah, I started working with neon lights since 3 years now.
But I just realized the work with light is very connected to painting as well, because painting is light. And yeah, usually me, as I have the painting background, I create often also atmosphere with lights in the installations.
Okay.
But yeah, in this piece we separated it, like you make the light, I make the sound. So.
And not only the sound, because it's like vibrations that goes through the floor as well. And
yeah, I mean sound is vibration, then on the ground or when you feel it through your bones, it's just like very deep frequencies which you cannot hear, but you can experience them differently. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think one of our common thing, also another common thing, that I also come from a painting background. I used to study painting, and then I studied here in Germany, and then I am doing mostly installation or videos, but it depends really of the work, of the idea, and which comes out. But I really like this experience of using different materials, like now, and when I project things like like here, I always think about the idea behind and how I can project in a different way concerning my idea. For instance, in my last work, I did a piece. I was storytelling and between death and life, and the space in between death and life. And I was using one paragraph from one writer. He is talking exactly about it, and then I wanted to bring this difference with the idea of a projection. So I paint first on the wall and then I project. And here it's like, projection because of the dream and, how I would tell. Of course, it wasn't so easy, but each work is another process of enjoying the material, what will tell you. And if you are there to listen, you learn a lot, of course. But if you are stubborn, you want to do exactly what you want, of course it doesn't work sometimes because Matthias is saying something else, and so it's like always this process. And I think this process is really exciting for me. Each time I'm much excited than the result. I mean, of course, the result is also important, but this process you are living in, and so many people is having, because they are working collaborating, and me, I look like I work alone, but I ask my friends like some help, and what do you think if it worked? And so it's no one is doing their piece on their own, but
no process.
Yeah, process is really amazing to teach, I think, and it's very important, and I love it.
Can I ask something? No, how did you come up then to project to the ground, like from up?
This, vertical, horizontal things, it's like they use for vertical, and I study art history, and all the time this vertical has to do with manlykeit, manhood. So I was always thinking about this, how can I turn around and make it different? And this is the first time I am also using I mean, I had this idea already, how I can use it, how I can manage, but this time, I had a chance to try, and it's a very complex way of coming out.
Yeah, it's really nice to change the perspective.
I have a question. I want to understand you. You say, I don't speak language. That means you speak something else. And if you don't speak language, what do you speak? Or the second question, are you speaking?
The phrase is a paradox itself, and that is what we are speaking of. The language that we use to communicate is made of arbitrary symbols. We think of it as a kind of virus. We are the host of this virus called language. We make experiments to disrupt the language in order to be aware of the symbols in a poetic way.
Thank you.